So Fantastic Four First Steps was surprisingly a good movie. If you're like me, you probably clicked on this with a mix of excitement and deep-seated apprehension, because here we are again, staring down a new Fantastic Four movie. This one's titled Fantastic Four First Steps, and it's Marvel Studios' latest swing at getting this foundational family of heroes right. And when I say latest swing, I mean it's another attempt after a long, storied, and frankly often embarrassing history. Think about it. We've had the low-budget, unreleased 1994 film that became an urban legend, the two early 2000s attempts that were, well, fine for their time but barely scratched the surface of the team's potential. And then that 2015 fan-tastic disaster we all collectively wished into oblivion. Each past effort seemed to miss the mark, struggling with tone, character, or simply the very essence of what makes the Fantastic Four, well, fantastic. But this one is different. It's like Marvel finally got it right. No multiverse homework, no 17-movie backstory, just Pedro Pascal's mustache and a planet-eating space god who's weirdly sexy. I don't know, I was on a bender last night, so give me a break. Anyways, now in 2025, we've got Matt Shakman, the guy who masterfully helmed most of WandaVision, taking a crack at it. His work on that Disney Plus series proved he understands character-driven narratives, genre-bending, and visual storytelling, which are all vital components for the first family of Marvel. The premise this time is intriguing. It's set in a new universe, Earth 828. Also, just want to warn you, minor spoilers ahead. Okay, so critically, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm have already been the Fantastic Four for 4 years. No origin story rehash, thank the cosmic powers. The film drops us directly into their established dynamic as a family and a superhero team. The central conflict revolves around Galactus, the Eater of Worlds, who is rolling up to munch on Earth. So the stakes are planetary. The team's mission is to figure out how to save the planet and, perhaps more importantly, keep their unconventional family intact amidst cosmic chaos. Now, as I walked into the theater, my mind was a battlefield of conflicting desires. Part of me, the hopeful moviegoer, genuinely wanted a solid, fantastic film. Because who doesn't want to witness Marvel finally nailing the Fantastic Four on the big screen, giving us that good time at the theater we crave? The other, more cynical part of me, the one who enjoys a good cinematic train wreck, secretly hoped it'd be bad enough just for that pure, unadulterated comedic roasting potential. Well, I got neither of those extremes. Like I told you, I actually like the movie, but I'm gonna go a bit deeper than that. Does this movie actually suck? Well, no, but it is something delicately different. So you can expect some passionate rants, some unexpected praise, maybe a tangent or two. Okay, I want to start with the surface stuff because Fantastic Four First Steps immediately distinguishes itself visually. The aesthetic of this movie is something else entirely. The movie gives you a mid-century futuristic vibe, like someone in the 50s or 60s sketched out what 2025 might look like. We see bubble cars zipping around, sleek, curvy linear buildings, wild architecture that feels less like a sterilized sci-fi setting and more like a vibrant, idealized retro future. It's truly different, and I'll give them immense credit for that. It genuinely stands out from the usual drab, often generic superhero grind we've been fed for years. It's an immediate signal that this isn't just another MCU paint-by-numbers project. It's attempting something visually distinct. The cast is another area where the film starts to shine, particularly at the top. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards is carrying a heavy load as the brilliant but often socially awkward leader, and man, I can't take that away from him. The guy can act. That meticulously groomed mustache is basically his calling card. Shave it and he'd look more like the traditional clean-shaven comic book Reed. Grow a beard and he's back to Joel from The Last of Us. but he pulls off the hyper-intelligent, slightly aloof scientist routine, the one who genuinely believes he's the one who can crack this Galactus problem, and you absolutely buy into his intellectual weight. His dynamic with Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm works remarkably well. They feel like a genuine partnership, a married couple trying to outsmart a planet eater while also navigating the complexities of their unique family. There's a believable sizzle and a shared history that permeates their interaction. So there's an opening reel catching us up on their 4 years as heroes. It is kind of funny in its own right. Reed proudly declares he went to space with the brightest minds, which then, in a comedic way, cuts to a reveal that these brightest minds are his wife, his impulsive brother-in-law, and his best friend. I mean, it's like Hollywood nepotism on steroids right there on the screen. And maybe Marvel's first family should just own that inherent, almost comical narrow-mindedness. It sets a specific tone for their established, if somewhat absurd, family dynamic. However, this is where we hit the rough patch. The first act, despite its visual charm and compelling lead performances, drags like crazy. There's some inherent charm in seeing the established dynamic, sure, but the stakes are almost entirely missing in action. And honestly, I'm just baffled about Natasha Lyonne's Silver Surfer. She's there, she exists, but it's as if the writers forgot what to do with her after she was cast. She's barely used, relegated to a few almost cameos, and that's a genuine shame given her immense talent and unique screen presence. What gives, Matt Shakman? My guess is some drastic editing room decisions went sideways, perhaps sacrificing early plot development for a perceived quicker pace that ironically ends up feeling slow. And don't even get me started on the pre-release hype versus the final product. Joseph Quinn was out there in interviews saying Johnny Storm is no longer the womanizer from the comics, that he's matured beyond that. But then he watched the movie, and while it's buried in the family drama he can't explicitly act on, that womanizing flirtatiousness is absolutely still there, simmering under the surface. It feels like a disingenuous attempt to placate a certain segment of the audience before the film even drops. Similarly, remember all the talk about Sue Storm leading the team, taking charge? Nope. It's still Reed Richards with the chalkboard and the press conferences presenting the master plans. I'm just exhausted by writers, directors, actors, producers, whoever is responsible trying to spoon-feed us context, character motivations, or narrative changes in interviews instead of simply letting the movie speak for itself. It's like they're consciously tossing out rage bait for YouTubers to chew on, generating controversy clicks. Just stop it. Filmmakers, just tell your story within the film. And YouTubers, for the love of cosmic powers, quit taking the bait every single time. That's my tangent. Let's move on before I get too worked up. Now, the characters, specifically those who suffer most from the midstream entry point. Ben Grimm, the Thing, is designed to be a highlight. He's that big rock monster with a heart of gold, showing off for the neighborhood kids, smashing buildings when needed. He has some genuinely charming moments that highlight his softer side, but compared to even those mid-2000s Fantastic Four movies, this feels incredibly thin in terms of his personal journey. Back then, they dedicated significant screen time to digging into his struggles, the profound psychological and emotional impact of his transformation, giving us a real sense of the man under the rocks. We saw the weight of his curse. Here, it's like, he's been the Thing for 4 years, so who cares about that part? All we get are those cool, kid-friendly moments. I desperately wanted to see what's going on inside his head, the ongoing anguish or acceptance of his condition. But by skipping the origin story and its immediate aftermath, we're left with only surface-level characterization. It is understandable byproduct, jumping into their lives midstream to avoid origin fatigue. I completely get it, and I actually respect that, but for Ben, it still stings, robbing him of crucial emotional depth. Then there's Johnny Storm. He's got some fire going, both literally and figuratively. And that narrative thread involving Shalabel, Silver Surfer adds an interesting layer. It's a nice twist on the traditional Herald dynamics, even if it feels a little too convenient. Perhaps a studio play for social media buzz and fan speculation about future MCU connections. But again, it's odd they overtly downplayed his womanizing nature in pre-release interviews when it's still lurking under the surface in the film, just held back by the immediate family stakes. This inconsistency reflects a larger problem. The whole movie feels rushed in its character development and thematic exploration, almost as if they started unpacking complex story arcs and then said, guess we're done here, let's move along. In my opinion, this movie needed more time to flesh things out, to let these characters breathe and grow within the narrative. Half the intriguing ideas and potential character beats feels like they got left on the cutting room floor. Now, I'm gonna be very honest with you, my theater was dead. I don't know, maybe they didn't understand the movie or they were just bored or drunk, I don't know, but there were no pops, no room-wide laughs at the jokes that clearly landed flat. And no one sort of teared up. Those big capital M moments that superhero movies live for, the heroic save, the awe-inspiring display of power, the heartbreaking sacrifice, were conspicuously missing in action. Galactus himself looks visually impressive, sure, with that sheer intimidating cosmic scale, but the climactic visuals during the actual confrontation don't deliver the punch, the visceral impact or the emotional resonance that I wanted. And yeah, there are a couple of CGI shots that genuinely pulled me out of the moment, feeling noticeably unfinished or clunky, while understandable for practical reasons, like they literally couldn't shoot it any other way. Not every audience member is going to let that slide. These are minor nitpicks individually, but collectively, they add up to a lukewarm experience. Now, for me personally, there were unexpected positives. There are some genuinely strong ones. The standalone feel is an absolute relief. No prerequisite MCU homework required, which is a godsend when you're keeping up with those 37 movies and 14 plus Disney series that feel like a second job. I mean, I'd generally rather watch cartoons with my kids than slog through that increasingly bloated backlog, and this movie respects that by telling its own self-contained story. It's a refreshing change of pace in a franchise that often demands encyclopedic knowledge just to understand the jokes. Galactus, though, he's a true standout, probably the strongest antagonist portrayal we've seen for this character in any medium. And the deep resonating voice from Ralph Ineson, those piercing glowing eyes staring down at the team from within his formidable, almost Lovecraftian armor, it's genuinely creepy in a way I didn't expect. So they absolutely nailed this cosmic scale, and that first reveal had me sitting up straight in my seat. And that was a rare moment of genuine awe. Silver Surfer also pulls off a remarkably emotional moment, a tragic arc that gives her character depth beyond just being a herald. I won't spoil the details here. And let's talk about Michael Giacchino's score. This man is a genius, and he absolutely saves the day during the pivotal launch scene, and indeed throughout many of the more emotionally resonant sequences. His music is sweeping and heroic, perfectly capturing the sense of rockets firing and the awe of slipping into the unknown. The music single-handedly carried what the visual sometimes could not deliver. And that's saying something given how talented this guy is. I've loved his work since Lost, and he consistently brings that magical touch here, elevating scenes that might otherwise fall flat. As a dad, that underlying parenting metaphor embedded within the core conflict truly hit home. Galactus isn't just a planet eater, he functions as this looming, overwhelming threat that parents constantly feel. While Silver Surfer is almost like the heads up, the messenger warning of impending life-altering change, it's like pregnancy panic stretched out for over 9 months, preparing for the worst-case scenario while simultaneously trying to convince yourself it's not the end of everything you know. I guess Matt Shakman, becoming a father himself relatively recently, drew from his own experience, and it shows. Even if it's not the more subtle metaphor, there's this beautifully raw argument between Reed and Sue, where her manic, exhausted new mom energy brought back instinctive fears I hadn't felt since my own early days as a parent. Pascal's face reflecting that overwhelmed anxiety was spot on. Rooting the story in something that basic, human, and universally relatable was a genuinely smart move. Even if they didn't hide the metaphor under a bushel, it gives the film a thematic backbone that many other superhero films lack. So the world of Tomorrow Today setting is undeniably bizarre, but the zippy montages setting up that outlandish baseline perfectly prep you not to overthink their plan to stop Galactus, which, let's be honest, doesn't hold up to scrutiny, even by comic book logic standards. The rapid pace zooms through that less than 2 hour runtime, not letting you stop to ask too many questions. Sometimes that kind of pacing is a band-aid for sloppy filmmaking, but here it's more of a savvy use of shorthand. They put faith in us, the audience, to pick up what we need and go with the flow, accepting the heightened reality, and that's sort of refreshing when so many other movies, especially in the MCU, feel the need to over-explain every single detail and consequence. Emotionally, nothing had me on the verge of tears. There was a scene at the end, but for someone like me who's read the comics and know the context, so I knew what was going to happen. So, yeah, wasn't happy or sad. And I was not genuinely nervous for the character's survival at any point. So, Fantastic Four First Steps is not a cinematic train wreck. It's not a 10 out of 10 movie either. I mean, it's a good movie, it's an enjoyable movie, and it's a fresh start for Marvel. Matt Shakman directs a film that's interesting to look at, carries a unique tone, and features strong lead performances, even if it doesn't quite rise to the scale of its planet-eating antagonist. That force of nature doubles as a touching parenting metaphor that genuinely made me feel seen as a father, giving the film a surprising emotional core. These first steps might not be, awesome, but definitely confident strides I hoped for. But they're sure and awesome and strong footing for the Fantastic Four to leap into the MCU proper. Anyways, this was a review made by the Morbidly Obese Duck, and I'm just gonna waddle away now. Quack.